I think we can get started. Again, this my main intention here is to just be available to answer questions that might be coming up about koshering things. That's always a big topic. The first thing we're going to go over are the unique halachos of Passover falling out on a Saturday night, because that really does complicate things a little bit. Now, what is nice about that is that we'll do it and it's unique and it's always fun to do a unique mitzvah and to interact with the halacha when it's atypical. Oh, here, let me just let in Leslie. Um, but we won't have to deal with it again until 2045, I think. So that's also nice. Okay, great. We'll just wait
You
for
won't have to deal with it again. I don't think I'm gonna have to have a problem with that.
2045. Mirza Shem, that's that's not
It's
so far off.
I'll be 89 years old.
Please God to 120.
I mean,
Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, so we'll start with that. We'll start with welcome, Leslie. I was just saying, mostly I'm here to answer questions as needed, and I'm also just going to go over the unique halachos of a Saturday night Pesach, as best as I've been able to prepare. I'll be able to answer further questions as they come up. We're a week and a half out, so that is not a lot of time, but it's not nothing either. So if questions come up, please reach out. Okay. So yeah, so this year, and again, the next one is not for another 20 years or so, but this year, Pesach falls out on Saturday night, and that changes a lot of the ways that we behave on Erev Pesach, right? Erev Pesach itself is sort of a holiday of its own, right? Back in biblical times, that was the day in the afternoon where you would bring the Paschal sacrifice, and then you'd bring it home and eat it together on that night. And we'll see in a little bit. One of the major challenges is that about halfway through the day, a little less than halfway through the day, we have to stop eating chametz, even though it's not yet Passover. We can't be eating leaven after this year. It's going to be We'll probably go like the Gra. The Gra gives us until 10:45 a.m. this year. Some of the more strict opinions have it more like 10:20. But at 10:45, we're going to have to stop eating chametz, and we have to be rid of all of our chametz about an hour later, about an hour after that. Um, so that's going to be extra challenging this year, but let's hit a few key points first, right? So there's a custom among many. There's something called Tainus Bechoros. So if you are a firstborn male in your family, there's a strong custom to fast on the day before Passover. Usually we encourage people to go to what's called a siyum, right, which is a festive completion of learning a certain section, usually of the Talmud. I will say, especially this year, I'll give you some nice leniencies about that. But the that festive meal allows you to break this fast and eat for the rest of the day, and we encourage that because you are supposed to go into the Seder with an appetite, but not that much of an appetite because it takes a long time to actually get to the food in the Seder, and we want you to be able to concentrate. So that's going to fall out on Thursday this year. So usually it's on the day before Passover. Now it's going to be 2 days before Passover because Friday you're not supposed to fast and Shabbos you're not supposed to fast. So it's really going to be on Thursday, which, by the way, if this is relevant to anyone, again, most of the folks here it's not relevant to anyway. But if you have trouble fasting, there are further reasons to be lenient about it this year. But just before we move on from this topic, a nice leniency that I've heard from a number of rabbis that I've relied on in many situations because I've often spent Passover outside of an established Jewish community. You can learn, if you learn through all of the Pirkei Avos on your own, or if you pick a Masechta of Mishnayos to learn, and you learn that whole Masechta, that's a siyum that counts, and you can break your own fast that way. So that's useful. Some even allow it for books in the Tanakh. That's a little harder to justify halachically, but you can certainly pick a nice short tractate of Mishnayos or one that's familiar, again, like Pirkei Avos, and that works. So that's going to be on Thursday. The other big change is that Bedikas Chametz, right, which is the search for chametz, the search for leaven in your house, that's normally done the night before the Seder. This year, that's going to be Thursday night. It's going to be Thursday night. That's when we do, you take the wooden spoon and the feather and the candle. You don't really have to do all of those things, but that's the strong custom. You sweep the crumbs into the wooden spoon with the feather and you look with a candle. If you don't like carrying a candle around the house, you can use a flashlight for sure. But you do it normally as you would every other year, just that it's going to be on Thursday night instead of Friday night. So you do that Thursday night, you make a bracha, you do it with the bracha, and then you check the house. You nullify, you make your declaration nullifying the chametz after the check. Again, the whole Thursday night check is normal. It's just not on the night we would expect. So you do it with the bracha, you do the declaration nullifying the chametz afterwards. And then you take that whatever chametz you have from that search, you save it until Friday morning, and Friday morning is when we go and burn the chametz. We go and destroy the chametz. Now, destroying chametz, it's not as simple as just throwing it in your own garbage can, right? There's a strong custom to burn it in the public square. I assume Bialystok is going to have something in the neighborhood. Not 100% sure on that. You can also there's debates. You can maybe throw it into a municipal garbage can. You can flush it down the toilet. Be careful with that one.
The
Yeah.
autumn back of my building has, they burn chametz over there. I go
Okay,
to,
great. Where is it? That's Seward Park, right?
yeah,
Okay, great. So in the neighborhood down here, there will be places where people will be burning chametz. So that's done on Friday. The big difference about burning the chametz this year is that you don't make your declaration nullifying the chametz until Saturday morning. That's really the only difference. You burn the chametz normally, but usually there's a declaration you say afterwards. You save that until Shabbos, until the actual time that it becomes forbidden to eat chametz. Okay, so what do you do about Shabbos meals? Because this is where one of the big challenges comes in, right? We have a requirement to eat 3 meals on Shabbos, ideally with bread, with 2 loaves of bread. Certainly nighttime and first daytime, you really are supposed to. Shalashudas, there's more room to be lenient, but even so. So the most halachically acceptable way to go about this is you save whatever amount of bread you need, right? Get rid of everything except, a couple of little loaves of bread, and you carefully eat those and you're careful to not get crumbs everywhere or to use them on your Passover dishes, etc. Some people they'll make hamotzi outside. I think that's what we'll do in the shul. Um, we'll see. Um, that's probably the most halachically acceptable way if you're not overly concerned about crumbs and you can be careful and all of that. Something that I
Wait,
was just reading
wait.
that, yeah,
How will we do it in the shul? We have to stop eating chametz at 10:25.
yeah. So I saw some stuff that's gonna we might amend what I was initially thinking, but as it stands right now, what I've discussed with Ethan and Mark is that we'll do an early kiddush between, like we'll daven shachris and then we'll do kiddush for hamotzi, and then we'll come back and daven the rest. So that's how we would do that. Now, I will say I've seen a lot of literature enough that I'm very comfortable saying this. If that option doesn't work for you for whatever reason, whether you're not going to have time to eat your meal before the end time of eating chametz, or because you're truly just very stressed about having any kind of chametz left in your house, you can use egg matzah. It's a debate among the poskim, but I think there's a lot to rely on, especially in a situation um, where it's Shabbos right before, in a tricky situation like this. I think there's definitely room to be lenient. That you could use egg matzah Friday night, you could use it Shabbos morning, and there's even opinions that would allow you to use it into the afternoon for shalashudas. So that's a real option as well. Egg matzah in general, we don't use. Ashkenazim in general don't eat egg matzah on Pesach because it's a little too rich to be called a poor man's bread, and matzah is described as a poor man's bread. So generally Ashkenazim stay away from egg matzos, but it's not chametz according to the vast majority of poskim, and it also, according to most poskim, doesn't violate the issue of eating matzah on Erev Pesach, right? So that's why you might say, why can't we just use regular matzah, right? The whole house is turned over, everything is Passover ready already. Why can't we just use regular matzah? So there's a rabbinic injunction that you can't eat matzah on the day before Passover because we want you to have an appetite for it for that night when it's a Torah commandment to eat matzah. So that's a lot of those complications. Any questions until this point? Always feel free to jump in, but any questions at this point?
So if you go away, which I'm doing, and probably other people are too.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna clean my house and because it could happen that I'd have to come back.
Okay.
Do I do the bedika early, and do I say a bracha?
You do it early. I'll double check, and here, let me take notes here. That's the other thing. I'm gonna try to answer what I can tonight. If I don't know it off the top of my head, I'm gonna write it down and get back to you. I'm gonna write it down so I won't forget. But you definitely do the bedika before you go. I have to double check about the bracha.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Seconds.
I have a question. Do you
Yeah,
hear-
please.
I have a lot of questions. I actually just walked to shul and back with my canes. I thought you were there, so I'm
Oh, sorry about that.
really. Anyway, I have many questions, but the question, Friday night is not Pesach, and you can eat chametz, right?
Correct.
So if I have a meal of chametz. That's cool, right?
Yeah, it's just tricky. If you can
Why?
keep it, if you can, just to keep it separate from all the
Yeah,
Passover
we're gonna go
stuff.
outside. Just go out. We're going upstate, so I figure, we'll
Okay.
just have a table on the deck, and we'll have a meal.
Yeah, that should be fine.
And we'll make a motzi and we'll have some sandwiches or something, not a hot meal. But I have a whole bunch of questions. If you go away, do you
Yeah.
make bedichas chametz where you live in your home, and do you make it where you're going? Do
So
you
you
do it twice?
you definitely have to do it wherever you'll be. You definitely have to do a bedika to the best of your ability. If you're not going to be home at all during all of Pesach,
Well, you never know. Like Kressel said, you know.
so
never
so
know.
then you should also do one then before
You could do
you
two
leave.
of them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have to get back to both of you about the bracha though. Whether you make a bracha on it.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else so far about like chametz on Shabbos this year and things related to the Shabbos?
Yeah, I'm.
Great.
Can we put the oven on Shabbos mode after Shabbat or before, or does it last for 3 days? In other words, you put it on Friday and then keep it on, or do you turn it off?
Yeah. So
On again, and do you make Havdalah Saturday night and like?
yeah. So Havdalah I'll cover in a second, but yeah, that brings up a good question. So I think the easiest thing, I assume your oven is an electric pilot light, correct?
It is. I have an electric oven now upstate. Yeah.
So yeah, so if it's electric,
It's electric.
if
An
it's
electric oven.
if it's electric, I think you have to figure out a way to keep it on the whole time. There's no real way to turn it on Yontiv, unfortunately.
So you keep it on all those days.
Yeah.
And what about the burners? I read somewhere, it's crazy. That you're supposed to cover the electric burners too. I've never covered. I've always burnt them. Just leave it on
For
about-
Pesach, you're saying for
Yeah,
kosher
for the
reasons?
kosher. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll double check that as well, but I don't think you strictly have to. As long as you clean it well, I don't think you have to cover it.
But you
It's
can leave that on
certainly
too, right?
sorry.
You can leave a burner on too. I've never left a burner
Yeah.
on, but I guess it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's electric, there's not much of another choice. So,
Do you put that warming plate on top of it? Is that safer? Do you know?
sometimes it's safer, like the blech.
Yeah, but just a round black, not a whole big black, but
Yeah. No, because that way you don't have it exposed to the air. It's potentially safer. It's a risk, but it's safer.
Hmm.
If you have gas stoves and gas ovens, so you should light a Yortzeit candle Friday and keep that going through Shabbos and through all of Yontiv. Right. So that okay. So let's talk about cooking on Yontiv for a minute. What's extra tricky this year is that we have to wait for Shabbos to end before we can start prepping for Yontiv. So Seder is going to be late this year. Seder is going to be extra late. Second night's always later than first night. This year they're both going to be late because you have to wait till the stars come out. Now on Yontiv you're allowed to cook. On Yontiv you're allowed to cook for the sake of Yontiv itself. But you're not allowed to start new flames. So you can transfer from a Yortzeit candle to a gas stove. If your oven, I don't think most ovens have this anymore, but if your oven has a gas pilot, whether on the stove or in the oven, a gas pilot, you can actually turn on your oven normally. Just again, most ovens these days have an electric pilot if they're gas. Yeah. Cooking has to be done for Yontiv itself. And for that reason, everything I'm seeing recommends getting like the egg for the Seder plate and the shank bone, all of those roasted things for the Seder plate. It's best to get that done before Shabbos if possible, because if you plan to use that for the Seder plate for both nights, there could be issues with prepping it on the first day of Yontiv. So best to get that done before Shabbos if possible. And again, cooking, we can't really start cooking or prepping until after Shabbos ends, which this year is like 8:50-ish. I mean, double check it for your area, but it's around that time. Any questions about cooking?
Well, if you can't, oh, never mind. I don't know. It's too confusing.
Okay, I can also, Leslie, I can also stay on with you at the end if you have more to go through.
Okay.
Okay. Havdalah. Let's go over Havdalah. So I believe it's in most of the Haggadot, which makes it a little bit easier. But there's a famous acronym called Yak Nahaz to remember the order of like the Havdalah and everything, right? So Saturday night we're gonna have a Kiddush. We're gonna have to make Kiddush for the day of Pesach. And we're also gonna have to make Havdalah, and there's all kinds of halachos about not eating before Havdalah and not drinking before Kiddush and before Havdalah. So the Yak Nahaz stands for Yayin, wine, Kiddush, Ner, Yak, Havdalah, and Zman. So what that really means is you take the cup of wine and you make Borei Priagafen, and then you do Asher Bachar Banami Kol Am, you make the festival Kiddush, after which you make the special, well, you make Borei Meorei Ha'esh on the Havdalah candle, which it's easier. Well, okay. You make Borei Meorei Ha'esh on the Havdalah candle, and then you make Havdalah, and it's a special Havdalah because it's Hamavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh, right? The one who separates from holiness to holiness, instead of Hamavdil ben Kodesh LeChol. Again, that can be found in the Haggados. The text for it is there, but we're going from the holiness of Shabbos to the holiness of Yontiv, which is still a step down in the hierarchy of holiness, but it's different than going from Shabbos into the normal day. And then Zman at the end is Shechianu, right? We say Shechianu always on Yontiv. So you say that after the Havdalah blessing. Again, it sounds confusing, but most of the Haggados will have it delineated, which is very helpful. And then you continue the Seder on normally.
Rabbi Ben, do we
Yeah.
say over the spices? Samim?
No spices, no spices. I don't remember why. Let me make a note of that. Also, again, I'm not I'll answer what I can on the fly. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to get back to you folks. But no spices. I don't remember why though.
Well, why do you say the Kiddush for the Yom Tov? Why do you say Kiddush? Don't you just say Borei Priagafen?
No, there's a whole Kiddush for Yontiv as well.
Oh God! And then you say
It's-
it again in the Seder. So you say
No. This is all in the Seder.
What did Havdalahs before the Seder?
No, you do the Havdalah as part of the Kiddush section of the Seder.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So okay, that's different.
I think you don't use the spices because you're going from holy to holy.
I think that is the answer.
Yeah.
I think that is the answer. The spices are supposed to be a comfort as we leave the holiness of Shabbos and go into the
Right.
mundane week. Doesn't apply in the same way over here. Okay,
Thank you very much.
sure. Let's see what else. Okay. So chametz should be arranged to be sold before Shabbos, ideally. Talk to me if you want to sell chametz to me, talk to me, and I'll do that, and I'll probably end up selling it to Rabbi Bellino because he has a good setup with the community. Otherwise, Chabad.org is also an option for selling chametz, or if you're traveling, whatever rabbis in the community that you're traveling to, that could be an option as well. And the final declaration of nullifying your chametz, of disowning your chametz, that's done on Saturday morning this year. It'll be around 11:30-ish. 11:39 according to Magen Avram, 11:36 or 11:51 according to the Gra. So that can be done on Shabbos, and that ends whatever chametz you have. Just again, make sure that whatever chametz you saved to eat on Shabbos, make sure that that's all gone, that's all in the municipal garbage can or down the toilet or given to a non-Jew, but truly out of your possession. A word on chametz itself and cleaning. So chametz isn't magic. This took me years to sort of drill into my head. Chametz isn't magic. What are we looking for when we're looking for chametz? We're looking for real pieces. We're looking for actual pieces of bread. We're not looking for dust. Certainly we can do a little bit of spring cleaning while we do Pesach cleaning, but on a halachic level, Passover cleaning does not have to be spring cleaning. Rooms that require checking are places like the kitchen, places like the dining room. In my situation, I live in an apartment and I do a lot of my eating in my bedroom. So I'm gonna have to check my bedroom. But if you don't usually eat in your bedroom, you don't have to search, You're certainly welcome to, but you don't have to. You don't have to bend over backwards to move the heavy furniture, to look behind the couch and to look behind the bookshelf. You don't have to check your svarim. There's a lot of things that people will do that's above and beyond, and it's always beautiful to go above and beyond, but we drive ourselves crazy a little bit with Passover. We're looking for pieces of bread. We're looking for pieces of chametz, and that's what we're getting rid of. Aside from, again, if you have chametz products, if you have a nice bottle of whiskey, or if you have I don't know, if you have a whole year's worth of challah dough in the freezer, and like it would be a big loss to get rid of it. So you can sell that, right? You can give that to a non-Jew, you can sell that to a non-Jew. But in terms of the stuff that you want to get rid of, it's the chunks, it's not the crumbs. Countertops, right? I want to transition into koshering. And any more questions about the specific Erev Shabbos
One more
stuff?
question.
Yeah, please.
Shmura matzah, do you have to use it or can you don't have to use it, right?
I've heard both ways. It's definitely I've heard more people say that you have to use it. Growing up, I didn't use it. That's not a proof for anything. I know Rabbi Bellino says you don't have to use it. So if it's too much, then rely on that. I will say most of my rabbis, for Seder night itself, you should have shmira
But
matzah.
it could be already. It doesn't have to be the big things that fall apart that it costs $80 now. It could be in a already made,
Yeah. These days, even they make
box.
machine-made shmura matzah also.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I believe is a lot more affordable. And if you ask the Yekes, they'll tell you that's better anyway. So okay. So that's fine. And again, Rabbi Bellino doesn't there's that's one leniency I'll give you from Rabbi Bellino. He doesn't seem to be bothered at all by shmura matzah. And the other nice leniency, by the way, for a Seder, I don't know that I recommend this to everyone, but it's especially useful if it's genuinely difficult for you to wait until the Seder meal, or if you have elderly parents, or if you have young children. The karpas, when we dip parsley or potato or celery in salt water, that course The the normative custom is to just eat a little bit of that. And there's all kinds of questions potentially of what brachos you make before and after if you eat certain amounts. I will say I've been to a couple of seders, including last year at 6th Street, based on some real stuff, based on a Tosefta. It sounds like there was a time where that was an actual appetizer course. And I wouldn't say go crazy with it, but I would say that if you want to have like crudité during that time, if you want to have like a platter of celery and really nosh on it, I think I think that's okay. So that could be useful if you're having a hard time focusing because it's a long time before you're eating, or again, elderly parents, young children. I think those are all situations where that can be helpful. Okay, great. Koshering. The thing I've been thinking a lot about is koshering countertops. Koshering pots and pans is the normal, straightforward way, which is the following. Clean it well. Make sure it's totally clean. Don't use it for 24 hours. And once that's the case, you either, for a big pot, you boil it until the water overflows. So you fill it to the top and you boil it and the water overflows and that koshers it. For everything else, if you boil up a pot and you dip forks and knives, you dip it in the boiling water. Smaller pots, you dip in the boiling water. That's going to take care of most things. If you need to kosher pots, most pans, silverware for sure. That's called hagala, and that is the basic principle of koshering. Ovens, if you want to kosher your oven, it depends on the kind of oven. If it's a self-cleaning oven, they do still say you should make sure there isn't like explicit schmutz in the oven. You should do a little bit of a preliminary cleaning, but you run the self-clean cycle, and that really takes care of most of it. If it's not a self-cleaning oven, then you have to clean it pretty well, and then you just put it on its highest setting for an hour. I mean, make sure it gets up to heat, and then once it's up to heat, leave it on for an hour on its highest setting. That's called libun kal. That's a dry kind of koshering. And the reason why that works in a non-self-cleaning oven is that, it's never going to get, an oven's never going to get hotter than it can get. So there's been no food absorbed into that oven at any temperature higher than the highest setting. So that'll burn off whatever flavor we assume has been imparted to the walls of the oven.
Yeah.
No,
Rabbi, oh, I'm sorry.
no, please.
A follow-up question about the pots and pans specifically. So does that also apply to non-stick pans, like with a coating, or only to stainless steel?
That's what I'm gonna have to get back to you on it because it depends on what it's coated with. But a general sort of more like a regular Teflon or whatever they're using instead of Teflon now, I think usually you treat as like a stainless steel pan. Where it gets really complicated is something like what are they called? LaCroix, the enamelware, like a big Dutch oven with like a real layer of enamel. That gets
Oh,
very
okay.
tricky.
Okay.
But like a normal
You don't-
Teflon pan should be normal. Now, frying pans are trickier. Frying pans are a little trickier because it's all based on what kind of heat you're using it normally with. So a frying pan is much drier heat than like a soup pot. So for that you might need a blowtorch. Not that I recommend going out and blowtorching everything, but that you might need drier heat. If you have a frying pan that you need to kosher, reach out to me and we'll figure something out. But for normal pots and pans and for silverware, the boiling it is good enough.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Sinks and countertops. Sinks are a real issue as far as I could see. As far as I could see, sinks are a real issue potentially because you're using hot water basically. You're using hot water to wash dishes in the sink, and heat and wet are what transfer kosher flavor, right? It's not science per se, but within the halacha, we assume that the flavor of whatever food you're interacting with, that flavor is transferred via some degree of moisture and heat. So sinks, that really does come into play. If you have a stainless steel sink, it's very easy. You clean it out nice, and then you pour boiling water over it. You know, you make sure you cover the whole thing, but you take a kettle and you pour boiling water over it, and it's fine. Many people like to put an insert in. That's fine. I certainly won't say don't do that, but you don't. If you're able to truly kosher your sink, then you don't have to also cover it. It's trickier with ceramic. I don't have a good answer for you for ceramic sinks at the moment. That might require a nice cleaning and some sort of insert or some sort of tub. Probably even just one of the, they make little sink racks that you can put in the bottom, because really the bigger issue is the bottom anyway. The sides of the sink are not such an issue. So if that seems like that'll be an issue for you, again, reach out to me and we'll figure out what to do. Countertops, people go crazy with countertops. The main thing is like this: clean it, make sure it's good and clean. And then you can either kosher it by pouring boiling water over it. If you have a granite countertop, that certainly works. You know, no, it's not. Yeah, different materials behave differently, but if you're able to pour boiling water onto it, that is an option. I will say, it is potentially dangerous. You can mess up your countertops that way. Also, you have boiling water that could be spilling onto the floor. Like, if you're going to do that, be very careful. That is what a lot of people do, but be very careful. If you don't want to mess with that, you can also just clean it nice and cover it with something. If you kosher it, you don't have to cover it. Again, a lot of people do both. You don't have to do both. If you kosher it, you don't have to cover it. If you cover it, you don't have to kosher it. And if you want to be able to use it without koshering it or covering it, if you use a real cleaner, like with bleach, like a Clorox cleaner, something that really destroys whatever food might be on it, you clean it nice, and then you clean it with the Clorox, and that's okay also. That's all right on its own, because the whole thing about the Clorox is it turns whatever food scraps might be left over, it makes them totally inedible. And if something is inedible, it's no longer chametz that you have to worry about on Passover. So again, you either kosher your countertops, you clean, no matter what, clean the countertops, and then you can either kosher it, or you can cover it, or you can clean it with something very strong like Clorox. Those are all acceptable ways to make your countertops ready for Passover. Yeah, questions, random questions, related questions. Again, what would be most helpful right now?
I gotta go.
What do you,
But thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.
Meet you, Deborah. Bye bye.
what would you cover the countertop with? Another piece of,
Yeah, so these days the big joke, it's real, but you could use aluminum foil, right? You could wrap the whole thing in aluminum foil. What I saw that I really like, I worked in a group home in Muncie for a year, and what we did, they had like corrugated plastic, you know, like for yard signs. They had a bunch of that they cut custom made to the shape of their countertops, and they covered it with that. Some people buy countertops, you know, like a cheaper Formica countertop to put on top of it. So you can really cover it. You could cover it with like a hefty paper also. You know, no reason why not. Yeah.
I go
Leslie,
to
yeah.
Brooklyn, and there's a store there that we love,
Yeah.
Kingsburg, and they have these big white sheets that are pretty cheap. We just cut them and just put them
Yeah.
in. That's it.
Is that sort of a vinyl thing?
No, not even. It's just like a thick, I don't know what it's made of, but you know, layers of it's kosher. They sell a lot. It's pretty cheap,
Cool.
and you just cover everything.
Great.
It looks nice. It's white, you know, it's
Nice.
looks clean.
Yeah, the corrugated plastic sometimes does look a little funny, you know. So if you have a nice way to do it, that's even
They
better.
sell it all over.
Yeah.
So.
Good. That's countertops. Yeah. And anything else about koshering, I guess? Yeah, I'm sort of again, whichever direction would be most useful. That's where I want to go.
It's just they make such a difference between coils and electric coils, and then the
Yeah.
gas burn, and then the gas. I mean, you know, where do you stop? You just when I grew up, you just put the gas, you put the burner on, and you let it burn out, and you clean it and shine. That's
Your coils, are they the type that get red hot?
I can't see it. I bought a new one. I don't know what's
Okay.
on. I don't know.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna make a big note here to talk to you about electric stovetops.
Yeah,
But
okay, thanks.
I'm sure what have you done in years past, or is this the first year you have it?
Well, bought the stove last year, so it was clean.
Okay.
It was never used, so it was
Okay,
great.
great.
Now it's the first time we actually
Okay.
got kosher it.
Okay, good, good. For gas stovetops, I guess while we're on the issue of stovetops, if it's safe, the metal things that the pots go on a gas stovetop, you can again clean them. The first step is always to clean. The first step is always to clean, and then don't use them for 24 hours. If it's safe in your oven, and you have to check the owner's manual, if it's safe to put them in the oven for a self clean, that is one way that people kosher them. Or put it in the oven again on the highest setting. If your oven, if it's not safe to do that with your oven, or if you're freaked out by that, the other way to do it is you put a pot on top of it and turn it on for, I think, 45 minutes. But that'll kosher it as well. Again, I think with the stovetop, if you don't want to go through those koshering steps, if you clean it nice and then wrap it in aluminum foil, I believe that is an acceptable alternative as well.
What about products? If does everything have to be OUP or
Well,
you
what kind
know,
of products are we talking? Are you talking
I'm
food?
talking about
Like,
canned tomatoes.
okay, so that I'll try to send you a list. Things like that. Usually the Star K and the OU will put out lists of things that don't require a special Passover hechsher. When in doubt, look for the Passover hechsher. But for something like a canned tomato, potentially it's okay. But again, you have to check the OU and the Star K. They really put out these big lists because it's a very case by case kind of thing. I can't really give like a blanket thing for it. I mean, obviously fresh produce is fine, but
Oh yeah, I heard
What
some crazy thing about peeling vegetables, man.
so some people do have the custom. It's most prominent among the Hasidim, I think, to peel even like tomatoes and things like that. If that's your custom, then great. And if it's not, you certainly don't have to take that on. I don't do that.
No, I mean I heard that sometimes they don't even buy vegetables that they have to peel. I don't know, or they bake
No,
them.
just the
Yeah.
opposite. You only buy vegetables you can peel.
Oh,
So that you can peel it and there's no risk of chametz on it, right? Is that the basic
Right,
idea?
right. You never eat anything with a peel.
Okay.
Like
a peeling.
you want an apple, you take the apples and the pears that you're going to put in your charosas. No peels.
Hmm. Yeah, so there
Same with
are,
potatoes. You're going to make potato kugel. Of
right.
course, you're going to peel it.
What about
So
broccoli?
No broccoli.
You know, so you don't eat broccoli?
Right. Actually, a lot of Hasidim don't eat broccoli at any time because they say it's impossible to check for the worms.
right, broccoli is hard for bugs, but that's its own issue. But here the idea is you can't really peel broccoli, I guess, right?
Right.
Okay.
But you don't hold by that, right? You leave
Me?
broccoli
I
and
don't hold by that. Oh, broccoli? Or yeah, what
Yeah.
I don't hold by that.
the whole vegetable thing. Vegetables are kosher. Period. Right.
Yes, yeah, but they do have to be checked for bugs always, right? Bugs are the issue. But as far as Passover stuff goes, yes, fresh produce, even those who don't eat it, it's kosher. It's kosher. It's just there is a strong custom among certain communities to be very strict about it. If that's not your custom, don't do it.
I never even heard of it until the other night.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing with Gebrats, right? There are many communities that have a custom to not eat matzah that's come into contact with water, right? So that takes matzah balls is the classic that it takes that off the menu. Again, if you grew up with that custom, if that's your community's custom, that's great. It's an old custom. It's an important custom. If it's not your custom, don't do it, right? Passover's already a restrictive enough holiday. You shouldn't feel like you need to take that on as an extra stringency. Since Judy, since you mentioned products, I know you were talking more about food, but just a basic overview for non-food products, right? This is another thing where I do highly recommend Googling the OU Passover guide and the Star K Passover lists. There are debates among the poskim as to what about chametz derivatives in products, you know, so like this is where like toothpaste comes in, right? There's different opinions about toothpaste. There's different opinions about mouthwash, especially mouthwash, right? Mouthwash that has alcohol in it. There's a big debate about denatured alcohol because denatured alcohol is, it means that it's mixed with some sort of poison so that people don't drink it. But theoretically, if you could take the poison out, the alcohol would still be regular alcohol. So some people say that that's a problem. The general rule, and I think this is good for our community, is if it's got a chametz product in it, right? If there's some sort of gum or flour or some sort of derivative of wheat, but it's a non-food item, if it's not something that a dog would eat, it's not something you have to worry about. That's the halachic, roi la'achilas kelev, is the halachic term, right? If it's not fitting for a dog to eat, then you don't have to regard it as chametz on Pesach. There's a funny story that they tell at Yeshiva University that Rav Yosef Soloveitchik was lenient about toothpaste, right? He said you could use regular Colgate on Passover, and some of his students, they tested it out. They sprayed a little toothpaste on the ground to see if a dog would lick it up, and the dog did lick it up. And no offense to dogs at all. He said stupid dog, meaning he held that that's not something a dog is supposed to eat. That particular dog decided to eat it anyway, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not even dog food. And so for that reason, you can be lenient on toothpaste. Mouthwash is a little bit more tricky, but again, there's real opinions that say that mouthwash is not a problem. So that there, I would cosmetics, lotions, because the other issue is not only is there a prohibition against eating chametz, but there's a prohibition against owning it and a prohibition against benefiting from it. So benefiting doesn't only mean eating. But again, if the chametz ingredient in there is degraded to the point that it's like totally inedible, then it's okay, and that allows a lot of cosmetics, etc. They publish the lists every year. I would Google it, and then if you have questions about anything, bring them to me, and I'll try to clarify. Beseder. I'm happy to keep taking questions. I think I covered the main points that I was hoping to cover. But so feel free to log out if you're good for that. But if you have more questions, I'll hang around until they're done.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
For sure.
Night.
Yashka.
Baruch Tia. Okay. All right. I'll sign off for all of us then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty. See you, Ma.
Bye. Bye, everybody.